It's so interesting that we're doing the interview today, but something very unique happened today. Today's the first time a commercial plane flew from Israel and landed in UAE, something that hasn't happened in 20 years. And Jared Kushner was on that flight. You and I, we know this, the Abraham Accord, a big deal that took place during the Trump administration, something that people thought wasn't possible. Why is that such a big deal? To some people that don't know a lot about this, don't follow the topic, why is that such a big deal?
Well, that's unprecedented. I mean, that has never happened in the history of Israel. I mean, the last few years, things are happening. I mean, even relations with Saudi Arabia, unimaginable in past years. I mean, they wouldn't have a Jewish person from Israel there ever. These were nations that hated Israel, warred against Israel, and now they're making peace. Kind of partly because of what's happening in Iran and to ally together. So it's amazing, and Trump has had a part in it as well. So it absolutely unprecedented. And then there may be other Arab nations that join in. So we're watching something that nobody has ever seen from the beginning of the birth of Israel.
So who does that benefit, by the way? So if I'm living in America and I see this on the news and they show it and they say, oh, it's such a big deal, it's never happened, it's unprecedented, and I don't follow these topics, I know nothing about the history, how does it benefit me as an American?
Well, if Israel is making peace with its neighbors, that benefits really everybody as far as there. It also benefits, the fact, and also actually it does benefit America because, when there's warfare there, it benefits a lot of times enemies of America. But on top of the fact, listen, when the Bible says when Israel is blessed, the world is blessed. So it's got to be a good, that part's got to be a good thing. Not that we think that means there's going to be peace all the area. We know more things about, the Bible says very clear things about it, but it's an amazing thing. And again, unprecedented.
So more a world peace type of a benefit to the world where less conflict means, more advancement. Is that kind of the way to look at it?
Well, it means that, it actually marginalizes terrorism, because I mean, this is, because the more you do this, the more funding for terrorism is taken out. Not talking about Iran or those, but in the Arab world. So for the Arab world, it's a great thing because again, and there's something that goes back 4,000 years called, we talk about the Abraham Accord. The Abrahamic Covenant says, you bless Israel, you're going to be blessed.
And then the other part is also with the embassy. I mean, you hear the story about, the embassy in Israel was moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem by President Trump in 2019. And we keep hearing about this. Again, to the average executive business owner, CEO, person that's running their own company, you hear this. Why is this also a big deal that this is happening during Trump? These are two different items that are taking place. Yeah. Why is it such a big deal to go from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem?
Well, there has never been, in all the history of Israel, there has never been any major power that has recognized Jerusalem. In fact, to find any parallel, you have to go back to ancient times, even to the days of King Cyrus in Persia. Because the last time you had a major world leader recognizing Jerusalem, that's Persia. That goes back in the Bible. So this was major. And the Bible speaks about in Israel that Jerusalem is going to be the center of conflict. Well, that's part of it. But also that nations, it says nations will try to move Jerusalem, like the status. Well, that's part of it. But also it says that Israel will rebuild that temple. So all these things play a part in that. And Trump, I mean, I wrote a book. We're not, this is the book that just came out, but the last book I did called The Oracle goes into the mysteries behind all of these things. And the thing is that Trump, one of the things that he follows, I mean, and we can go wherever you want, but in the paradigm, he follows a man. There's a pattern, a man called Jehu, but that's for America. And there's a lot to it. But for Israel, he's a Cyrus, which is the Persian king who recognized Jerusalem. But Cyrus, it's an amazing thing because when you look at Trump and you look at the time when the first resolution concerning Israel and Jerusalem was voted on by the UN, this is in 1947. On the Hebrew calendar, and the Bible says 70 years, it talks about a 70-year period. It says after 70 years, Cyrus issued this thing. Well, if you take that date and you go on the Hebrew calendar to 70 years, and it says after, so the day after, it's the exact date that Trump issued the Jerusalem Declaration.
Exact day.
Exact.
And is that what you wrote about in the book Paradigm in 2017?
That's in the Oracle. That's in the Oracle. The Oracles are the mysteries of Israel, the mystery. I mean, amazing stuff that's happening. And Trump is in there. The Paradigm speaks about the Jehu, Jezebel, and all these people in America. That has to do with America and Trump and all this stuff that's happening.